ready to play?
Wow.
Are you ready to play?
Yes.
Are you ready to play?
Yes.
Are you ready to play? Come on, let's get some enthusiasm in here. All right, guys, we'll get right into it. I'll remind you about Michael Uslane later. Guys, on Chapter 2, because we're starting off with the left side, the process of defining organizational strategy and allocating resources toward its achievement. Is that strategic planning, strategy, EEO, or administrative planning? What do you say, team the left side? This competition is yours to lose, guys. Survey says you're correct, so you're on the board. Team left side is on the board. All right, team the left side. Team late HR. What word is not part of SWOT? Is it strengths? Does everyone agree? Because you're correct. All right, back to team the left side. The guiding force and core reason for existence of the organization and what makes it unique. Is that strategy, mission, strength, or organizational culture? Say it real loud. B is correct. All right. We go to our other team, true or false. A mission statement is a concise statement of what your company is all about. Is that true or false? That is true. That was a very easy question. All right, back to our first team. Which of the following is not a method of operationalizing HR management strategies? Is it understanding the business, focusing on key goals, knowing what to measure, or learning from the past? Right off our slides. Take a guess. Your guess is D? D is correct.
Yeah.
All right. And we come to our first bonus question, Team 2. Tell me one HR issue we discussed involving a ride-sharing service. What's the issue? And what is an issue we discussed involving a ride-sharing service? Yes. So you say the question is per hour going rate? I'll give you that. We're talking about terms and conditions of employment. We're talking about contracting. Yes, we'll give you that point. All right, our team over here gets a bonus question too. How many times the average unemployment rate do persons with disabilities experience versus the normal unemployment rate?
Can we say like the two rates?
You can say the two rates. That's fine.
Well, like ours is, or for regular employment, it's like 4,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's 10% for disability.
Correct, you are. Nice job.
This is just 1 point each?
1 point each for bonus questions. All right. In the event of a tie, by the way, we'll do a sudden death bonus question. That's the way this will work. You guys got a bonus point? Yeah, you got a bonus point. All right. We're back to our second team. A corporation that has facilities and other assets in at least one country other than its home country. Is that called an offshore corporation, a multinational corporation, a foreign company, or an expatriate company? Survey says you're correct. All right, back to team 1. True or false? Ethnocentric policy is a scenario where managers from headquarters staff key positions to ensure control over subsidiary location operations. Is that true or false? What do you think, guys? What do you think, guys? True is correct. All right. Which of the following, Team 2, is not part of the HR planning process? Reviewing organizations' environmental analysis and strategic plans, assess external and internal workforce, compile HR planning forecasts, or develop graphics for job listings. D is correct. All right. Back to Team 1. Process of identifying a plan for the orderly replacement of key employees. Is that path of progression, succession planning, workforce audit, or none of the above? What do you think? I know JoJo wants to answer this one. What is it, guys? What do you think, team? What's your final answer is B? That's correct. All right, the two kinds of forecasting methods, Team 2, Are they judgmental and mathematical, rule of thumb and mathematical, judgmental and statistical, or rule of thumb and productivity? What are the two general kinds of forecasting methods? What's your answer, guys? What is it? C is incorrect. It was A. All right. True or false? True or false, Team 1? A top-down estimate is more detailed than a bottom-up estimate. That's right out of our text. A top-down estimate is more detailed than a bottom-up estimate. Is that true or false? That is false. Project management, guys. All right. The blank. Here we go, guys. Team 2, the blank method relies on general guidelines applied to a specific situation within the organization. This is the idea of forecasting. Are we talking about the Delphi technique, statistical regression analysis, rule of thumb, or productivity ratio? C is correct. All right. Team 1, how long are intermediate range plans? Are they immediate needs, 1 to 3 year needs beyond 3 years, or needs beyond 10 years? What's your answer? B is correct. All right. Here we go. Back to Team 2. What is the current approximate unemployment rate in the United States? Which number is closest to correct? Say that again? B is correct. All right. All right. Back to this team. Bonus question. What kind of dog do I own?
Wait, can this go to us?
No, it's you got your own bonus question. What kind of dog is it? So the answer is Jack Russell Terrier, and you're absolutely correct. He's absolutely adorable, and if you love this dog, Team 2, what's his name? Willis is his name. Yes. All right. Back to Team 1. Which one of the following is not a way to manage a talent surplus? A talent surplus. Reduce employee work hours, hiring freezes, workforce downsizing, or increase employee hours through overtime. Survey says D is correct. All right, back to Team 2. Which of the following is not a legal consideration during layoffs? Is it Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, level of education, Age Discrimination and Employment Act, or the Americans with Disabilities Act? Which is not a legal consideration during layoffs? We've talked about all of these but one. Say it loud. B is correct. All right, Team 1. Which of the following is not a key HR metric? Is it HR staff and expenses, mission effectiveness, compensation, or retention and quality? Which one is not a key HR metric?
C.
Guess is C, and you are incorrect. So we could be resulting in a tie here. True or false, Team 1? Benchmarking is a framework used to report a diverse set of performance measures. Remember, we talked about what benchmarking is. Is that what it is or not? It's true or false?
I think Ian ready for it. Look at him. Look at this face. He's ready. Go ahead, Ian.
Is it true or false, guys? We got.
I don't think so.
It's false.
I told you.
All right, and we're back to Team 1. Which of the following is not a type of HR audit? Is it a compliance audit, a benefit program audit, a full HR audit, or a mission statement audit? Say it. Do you say D? D is correct.
Hey,
All right. True or false? If I have a talent shortage, Team 2, I should look at ways to downsize if I've got a talent shortage. Is that true or false? That is false. All right. How did our numbers turn up? By 1 point. We have the team left side. Guys, will you come up to the front of the room and carry the trophy with you, please? And I would like you to start on this side of the room and parade from here to the other side. Come on up, seriously, the victors. And if you will join with me, come on, guys, to the victors. And bring your trophy. You're going to lead the parade. And it's going to be da 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 da. That was the Olympic theme. Da 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 da. All right, congratulations to the victors. Well played, guys. And the thing is, you guys got to maintain that prize heirloom for when we get to the second exam. So, thank you for that, guys. You guys all have 2 bonus points coming on your first exam, and Becky, for being scorekeeper, you get a bonus point for being our scorekeeper. So you got 3 coming. So, yeah, actually no, we'll figure that out because you were on this side of the room. I don't know how I wanted to decide this yet. You probably won't meet them anyway. Anyway, guys, before we get into today's lecture, just a couple of reminders. Number 1, guys. In this class, if you are not taking notes, please do so because you'll notice there are things that we have mentioned once or twice that are showing up as questions. So make sure when I say something's important, write it down for sure. Second, this Friday, if you are on campus, I'm asking you to earn 2 bonus points by coming to the Michael Usland presentation Friday in JFK. It's going to be a big deal. If you are traveling for competition and are not available to come to that event, I am offering an alternative to earn those 2 bonus points, and that is by doing a brief 5 to 10 minute conversation in class, leading a conversation from an HR issue of your choice. You can still earn those points by leading that conversation if you're not available to come to the presentation. Third, last but not least, if you're around this evening, please consider coming to the Suicide Awareness Walk at 5 p.m. And that starts out in front of the chapel, am I correct? Yeah. In front of the chapel? And then we also have a candlelight ceremony honoring the people we've lost to suicide at 8 p.m. around I believe, the campus fountain. Am I correct there? Yes. Yes.
And then there's a church service
in between. Excellent. So if you're able to, please come out. Yes, ma'am.
What time is the ending Friday?
It's 7 o'clock. And it's going to go to about 8:30, probably 8:15, 8:30. And there's going to be an opportunity for questions and answers, too. By the way, by show of hands here, who all is working a booth at the carnival that night, too? We got a few folks who are going to be there. Thank you for being willing to be a part of that. Guys, before we jump into EEO today, any questions about where we're at before we jump in for today? Questions or comments? Okay. Guys, the goal is we got to get through Chapter 3 because we need to do our first exam in this class before the mid-semester break. So I have something more to score you on just than homework. So we're going to be moving at a good clip on this particular chapter. The material, I think, is pretty compelling. It's stuff that I enjoy talking about because I think even in 2019, we're still dealing with issues of equality in our society, and it's something we need to talk about. To that end, we're going to start off with a little game. We've got a game called Discrimination or Not. We have 2 candidates for an entry-level management job. We have 2 equally qualified candidates, 1 male, 1 female. They are both Caucasian. Both are hired. The male negotiates a higher salary. We've talked about this scenario before. Has discrimination occurred or not? Who says no? Who says yes? Corey, you said no?
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Well, I think for me, I said no just because of the word negotiate. So I guess maybe because he negotiated, it's not really discrimination.
It's a fair point. Does anybody disagree with Corey on this one? They believe discrimination has happened. Why? Why has discrimination happened? Yeah, bottom line is, well, the company may not have intended to discriminate. For example, some people are better negotiators. Some people pay less for cars than other people because they know how to negotiate. It's true. The company may have, however, unintentionally discriminated because they're paying 2 different people the different amounts for doing the same job. People who have equal qualifications. The only difference between the 2 of them is their gender. So even if a company has not intentionally discriminated, they may still be discriminated. All right, we've got a female who showed up for a job interview in a warehouse. In writing, we have listed that the qualifications to do this job, you need to be able to lift 50 pounds. Reasonable if you're working in a warehouse. This applicant shows up in a powered wheelchair with no apparent use of her arms or legs. When she is asked by the interviewer if she understands the requirements of the job, She says yes, and the interview goes on. After the interview, the search committee decides the candidate is not worth considering and moves on based on her apparent disability. Is this discrimination or not? Yes.
Yes.
Tell me why.
Because I think as she understands that she has to live 50 pounds, who said she can't? Maybe she can't.
You're on it. So technically, anybody else want to add to that? Yes.
I think it is discrimination because they never asked her, like, can you showcase, can you do this?
That's exactly right. So the way it works, the letter of the law, the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, you cannot assume somebody has a disability until they reveal it themselves. Yes, ma'am. They can ask her if she can perform the job, and they are within their rights to ask her to demonstrate. So, for example, if somebody showed up in a powered wheelchair, I cannot assume they're disabled, and I cannot make the statement that they're disabled. If that person makes the statement themselves that I am a person with a disability, you can ask questions and talk about it after they have self-revealed. You are completely within your rights as an employer to ask somebody to do a pre-employment screen and to prove they can do the job. By the way, that's the ultimate employer defense here, is to basically say, show me you can do this job. Okay, we've got, this one's a good one. Mean Joe Green, one of the greatest players to ever play the game. Pittsburgh Steeler. We're casting a movie about Mean Joe Green. We have an Asian American male who shows up for the audition and wants to play the part. He's told he's not right for the part because of his ethnicity. Is this discrimination or not? Yes.
No.
Tell me why.
Obviously, Joe Green is black and the guy is Asian.
This is a trick question, guys, because technically it still is discrimination because you're making a decision based on somebody's appearance, in this case their skin color. However, it's called a BFOQ, and it stands for Bona Fide Occupational Qualification. It is a criteria by which you would normally be legally discriminating against someone, but you're allowed to under certain circumstances. You guys are in a facility that allows discrimination based on one criteria. What am I talking about? There's one job on this campus only men are allowed to do. What is it? You got it. Religion is covered under a BFOQ. For example, in our bylaws of St. Francis, it says we have to have a priest as president. To be a priest in the Catholic faith, you must be male. That is something I'd leave through your own conscience to decide if that's right or wrong. But the bottom line is it's protected under religious exemption. We have this guy who showed up for a job interview. He's got ink and piercings, and he is a colorful-looking guy. Now, on paper, he looks amazing. His resume's great. He comes with great references. You take one look at him, though, you're interviewing him for a customer service job, and you say you're no good for us, you don't look right for the part with all these piercings and all these tattoos. You basically say we're not going to hire you. Is this discrimination or not? Yes?
I think it's wrong. I think to not hire him because that's wrong, but I don't think it's discrimination.
You're absolutely correct. The courts have repeatedly backed appearance standards. For example, there's one way this guy might be able to claim discrimination. What might it be? Anybody have an idea? If it's something to do with your religion. For example, if under normal circumstances, guys who show up for job interviews, it is very common to enforce appearance standards, and actually guys with long hair have been asked to cut their hair. If you're growing your hair for religious purposes, or your beard, those also can be religious defenses. The bottom line is, too, a lot of companies, although their standards are relaxing now, why are these standards about appearance starting to relax a little, by the way? Any thoughts? Yes?
It's like more and more people are doing it. Like, the world is changing, society is changing. People have tattoos and people have piercings.
I think it's probably very uncommon, if I walked into a room of people your age, to find people who didn't have tattoos. It's a very common thing. It's becoming more acceptable. Even some companies that normally would require you to cover them are allowing you to leave them open now. We got Bob Jones here, who applied for a job in a tech shop. He's got an unhealthy relationship with his cat, but he is very qualified. However, the rest of the department are all guys who look just like him. They're all Caucasian males. So we've decided to pass on him as our best candidate because we want more diversity in the department. Has discrimination occurred? Any thoughts? Controversial. It's called reverse discrimination. It means when you're trying so hard not to discriminate that you end up discriminating. And it happens all the time. Well-intended people end up passing on good candidates sometimes out of the idea that they are going to be more diverse. So it's not easy to do this stuff, guys. The bottom line for all this stuff is discriminating is something we do all the time without even realizing it, and you should be backing up. You should be representing the demography of the area in which you live and you're hiring. If you live in a place that has certain demographics of people of color, white people, people from different religious backgrounds, and you're only hiring one type of person, that means you're probably, whether it's intentional or not, you're probably discriminating. This is tough stuff, guys. What our learning objectives are for this chapter are to really get you thinking about diversity, to get you thinking about what really was covered in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We have a few folks, for example, who are also in my 203 class. They know the answer to this question. But what is one thing that was not covered in the Civil Rights Act of 1964? What is a protected, or I should say, a class of individual who was not protected in that act? Because we knew, yes. You got it. Americans with disabilities and people of different sexual orientations, for example. We're also going to talk about the continuing gender divide in this country in terms of pay. If you had to guess, guys, I've talked about it several times in class. I want to see if you got it. If you took 100% of women in this country and 100% of men, all age groups, for the ladies in the room here, for every $10 us men make collectively, what are you making? What do you think? Yes? It's closer to $8.50, but it's still, there's a gap there. Now, it's gotten a little better with millennials. Millennials are making maybe $9.20, $9.40, because the gender gap is closing, but it's not done yet. So we still have this. And in terms of other things that affect women in the workforce too, things like flexible schedules. We're also going to be talking about sexual harassment. It's a big issue right now. What has been the name of the movement that has changed the way we think about sexual harassment in the United States? Over the last year?
Me Too.
The Me Too movement. And that has changed the way a lot of people are thinking about this stuff. Hopefully we're going to put some of these gender stereotypes to an end. We're also going to talk about disability laws and also how we can avoid discriminating. Guys, I like to start off with a little bit of a horror story because, and if I told you this before, I apologize. It bears repeating because it shows how we can unintentionally, as well-intended people, discriminate. In my previous life, I worked in technology. We were in process for a government-funded project installing video conferencing units. Back in the days before FaceTime, we used these large, literally $60,000 to $80,000 video telephones. They were ridiculous. It took like $100 an hour to make a phone call on one of these things. But they worked. And we put them into career links. And the goal was that we would be able to have somebody who was a deaf consumer come into a career link, a place to get a job, and be able to interview for a job by having a sign language interpreter come in remotely to interpret for the deaf individual to facilitate communication. Well, what happened was when we put this particular initiative out, they wanted to let the deaf community know about this initiative. So the state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth, decided to advertise. Can anybody guess how they decided to advertise? They put it on the radio. So in terms of absolutely showing, I'm not even kidding, it's like you can't make this stuff up, that somebody thought it would be a great idea to advertise to deaf individuals on the radio. That shows a complete lack of sensitivity, and it shows you don't know your audience at all. Does anybody here, by the way, speak ASL? Anybody ever taken those classes? Yeah. So have you guys interacted in deaf culture at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how would you describe like the deaf individuals you've met? How would you describe that culture?
Well, see, I'm not that great at ASL, so I got to slow down a little bit for me.
Sure.
But
yeah. Well, go ahead.
They really know who they are as a person. They're very proud to be deaf, and they're going through this too. So if one supports something, everybody's like there to support them.
They are their own subculture. If you know somebody who is deaf, they tend to hang out a lot of the time with other people who are deaf, which, that's what the way culture is. They also tend to be very defensive of their perceived disability. There's a reason why the word deaf is more politically correct than hearing impaired. If I say somebody's hearing impaired, what does that imply? there's something wrong with that person. And one of the most controversial subjects we get into is the subject of cochlear implants. A lot of deaf individuals are completely against those, saying we aren't perfect as we are. So when you get into these cultures, a misstep like this can close a door into a community you thought you had a way into. That's pretty much what happened. So in terms of what's changing in our country, guys, we would like to say that we are a very diverse country, and we are. In fact, we are becoming more diverse all the time. Right now, the majority demography in this country is still Caucasian, but that's not going to be true by the middle of the 21st century. By the way, the largest percentage of the population by the middle of the 21st century in the United States, what generic ethnic group will we put most people into in the United States? What will be the largest demographic? Well, it's not going to be mixed, and it's not going to be white. Who's it going to be? Asians actually are not growing at a demographic rate as close to other populations. It's going to be people who describe themselves as Hispanic or Latino. That will be the largest single ethnic group in the United States by the middle of the 21st century. Most of that population growth is happening in the South and West. So we're changing. So the other part of it too, guys, women are a larger part of the workforce than ever. We already talked about why people are working to older ages. One of the other things that's changing very rapidly too, we're no longer a predominantly Christian country. There are people who are practicing other faiths. The two quickest growing religions in the world are Islam and atheism. So I don't say that to tell you what you should believe. I'm saying that could have implications in the workplace. If we say, for example, that we have a predominantly Christian country right now, for example, how does that affect our HR policies? Very obvious, yes.
Like Christmas and Easter off and stuff like that.
You got it. How do we determine our breaks? Think about every single break that we have in most of our systems, whether it's the state, whether it is a private employer. Everybody gets Christmas off. Everybody gets holidays off that fall in line with the traditional Christian calendar. So we may have to start thinking about this stuff. We're talking about more people now who are entering the workforce who have Asperger's or autism. And by the way, one of my greatest compliments, I will pay your generation. You've grown up aware of individuals, for example, who are on the autism spectrum. And that's something that you folks have all integrated those individuals very well into your daily lives. My generation did a terrible job with that. You guys are doing great with it. We're also talking now about fewer people getting married, and you're going to hear more languages spoken at work. So flexible work schedules, why we need those? Because we have more single parents than ever. We want to talk about how things have changed, guys. I'm about to show you an actual training video from the 1950s. This one's for the ladies in the audience to show just how bad things were and how women were regarded in the workforce. I show this video because members of my family came up in this kind of work environment. So what I'm about to show you, oh, I know you have to have some reactions to this. Well, it is shocking, but ladies, what did you think of this? This was 50 years ago. What are your thoughts? Emily, what are you thinking from watching this video? How does that make you feel? This video is insulting from the first frame because the actual movie itself is called How to Deal with Women in the Workplace. I mean, it's amazing to me that when we talk about things like civil rights, this was within the lifetime of your grandparents, that we would put out a video telling managers, this is how you're supposed to talk to half of your workforce. So it's really a good reminder to say just how bad it was. It bothers me to think that women were making less money and were getting treated this way in the workforce for doing the same jobs men were doing. By the way, did you notice in that shot, the only guy there, what was he doing? Everybody's working drill presses. What's he doing? Well, yeah, he's the quote-unquote foreman, the manager. This video came out also in a time when people were still used to the idea of women going back to the workforce because of World War II. And so the only people you saw there weren't young, able-bodied guys, who were older guys who were not serving in the war, too. That was very timely for that era as well. I think it's amazing that it was not long ago that we were talking about this stuff. Before I move on, guys, I would like to stop a second for a question or comment about anything we've discussed so far today. What would you like to ask or discuss? Yes, sir.
The bathroom guy coming on Friday, what's his name?
Michael Uslan.
Is he one of your idols?
He is one of my heroes. I'm getting to meet one of my heroes on Friday, and I hope he's as cool as he seems like he's going to be cool. If he's not cool, it's going to break my heart. Yes.
Is he gonna be here only on Friday?
He's only going to be here on Friday, unfortunately. That's what we got him for. But this guy is literally. I'm reading his autobiography right now. This guy literally has lived this stuff since the '60s, and I mean the money he's made at Warner Brothers is unbelievable. He's responsible for over $1.5 trillion worth of revenue to Warner. Yes.
How did we get him to come here? Like, do we pay him a lot of money?
We paid him some money. Here's the way it happened. I'm a follower of his on social media, and I just started bugging him one day to say, what would it take to get you to come to St. Francis? And he put me in touch with his agent, and I ended up having a few phone calls with his agent, and so I basically worked until I got him to come. So
You tweeted him?
It was even more old school. I was doing Facebook messaging. Hey man, I'm a Gen Xer. It's my platform. Yeah.
If we go, it's for like extra credit.
It is.
Do we have to write a paper or like?
No. You have to go and enjoy hearing the history of how superhero films came to be in this country. And tell all your friends to come so we have a packed house, and Dr. Fry will be glad that we spend his money wisely. Those are good questions, guys. But yeah, I'm very excited. I hope he's as cool as I think he's going to be. So, but yeah, I will tell you this, guys. If you get a chance in your life to become a speaker, you can make a good living just doing speaking engagements. That's as much as I will say. And the endowment we have here, we are really lucky for the people we get to bring here. So, guys, let's talk about EEO in the first place. EEO is an acronym for Equal Employment Opportunity. Guys, why do we do it? There's two real reasons why we want to think about equal employment opportunities. One is the law. We've got to follow the letter of the law. We don't want our employers to get in trouble. We don't want our companies to get in trouble. That's important. What's more important is doing the ethical right thing. Somebody should be hired based on their qualifications and their skills. Somebody should have an opportunity, not based on where they came from or what their last name is, but what they're bringing to the table. And the absence of doing the right thing for the right reasons, companies get punished big time, and there are lots of ways in which they do. Let me give you an example, guys. There was a company called Chevron. You guys have all heard of Chevron, a big oil company. Back in the 1990s, somebody thought it would be really funny to put a dirty joke around on email, and it was making derogatory comments toward females. That dirty joke turned that place into what they refer to as a hostile work environment. The EEO Commission came in and fined Chevron over $2 million for one email that made its rounds. So in terms of how companies can get punished when they are not making sure that discrimination isn't happening in the workplace, it comes down to a lot of decision making that could affect people. So guys, in terms of EEO, what we want to make sure that we are doing, or I should say we're not doing, is that we're not making employment decisions based on things that are considered to be protected characteristics. And those protected characteristics, or protected classes as we refer to them, are things that were set out in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as well as some subsequent legislation we're going to talk about. You can't discriminate against somebody based on their age, their color, if they've got a disability. And this is a new and current one. Guys, why are companies so interested in finding out genetic information on their new applicants? Why would they want to know that stuff? What can they do? Yes?
If they have a gene for a certain disease,
Or for example, somebody more dispositioned, that's the word, toward cancer. They might be saying, well, this person's going to weigh on my healthcare system. Right now, that information is still largely protected, but maybe not in the future. By the way, has anybody here ever done the 23andMe or any kind of genetic service where you find out your ancestry? Have you done it? It's really interesting. I've done it myself. It wasn't surprising to me, but it was interesting nonetheless that a simple swab inside your cheek can tell you a lot about your DNA. So in terms of other things, guys, you can't discriminate against somebody, generally speaking, anywhere on their marital status. And you better not be discriminating against somebody on their military status or experience either. It's not only illegal, it's unpatriotic. So in terms of other things that we can't discriminate on, these are national origin. Where is somebody from? That's not to say you can't hire somebody because they're not a citizen, because, for example, in certain jobs in the government, you've got to be a citizen to be eligible for the job. Pregnancy is considered to be a disability. when a female is pregnant, believe me, if you've ever seen a woman who is getting close to having a child, trying to fly away up a flight of stairs, it can be a very difficult scenario. So that's considered to be a disability. Race and religion, obviously, shouldn't be able to hire somebody or not hire them based on where they come from or what God they worship. With the exception being BFOQ. If you're not a God-worshiping Catholic, you're not going to get a job as a priest. Sexual orientation is not universally protected, but it is in some areas. For example, the state of California does have protections for people who are transgender or homosexual. What this all comes down to, though, is what we refer to as an equal employment opportunity. And that means that we're going to give equal opportunity to everybody under the letter of the law, regardless of all these other conditions. If you are making a decision based on somebody's knowledge, skills, and abilities without knowing anything about them, we call it blind hiring. Why is that potentially a good thing, guys? Let's say, for example, if we have company A that does in-person interviews before they look at somebody's resume, we have company B that looks at resumes with the names blanked out. This is blind hiring. What might be the advantages of the second scenario? How might that be less discriminatory? Yes?
The second one, you are really hiring someone just based on their skills.
Exactly right. If we're looking at the resume. Now that's an oversimplification. There's things you just simply can't learn from a resume in terms of interpersonal skills, those sorts of things. But for example, my last name is Tonkin, and that's actually an Asian last name. How I ended up with that name, I do not know. But it is an Asian last name. So somebody can see that and make the assumption I'm a person of Asian descent just based on my last name. If they don't see my name, all they're going to judge me on is what my skills, what my qualifications were, where have I worked. There's one other thing that ends up on resumes, and we all put them there, that could also be, could put us up for discriminatory types of practices as well. What other information on our resume, beside our name, could lead to discrimination against us? Any ideas? Yes? For sure. How could that be discriminatory?
Whether it's like a college or high school only education.
Absolutely. In certain scenarios, that could definitely be considered discriminatory. I think that's something else, too.
What kind of with that school and like even with like your school, because like you could tell like say if you went to St. Francis, what's the ratio like? Is it like 60-40? What's the ratio for like male and female?
Here, yeah, I think you're about right. It's
So like you could say more than likely it might be a female. I guess you could say that.
absolutely true. Let me put it on, bless you. Let me put it to you this way, too. If we put the years, you guys put the years you graduated college on yours, and I put the year I graduated college on mine, what are they going to be able to tell about us? You got it. So if you look at what year somebody graduated, I'm not saying you shouldn't put that on your resume. I'm saying that that is a way that sometimes we end up unintentionally or intentionally discriminating people against people in those scenarios. So in terms of how we enforce this stuff, we've got a number of acts that we're going to talk about, a number of laws you need to be conversant with. But this can emanate from the feds. It can come down from city or government. It can come down from court decisions, too. For example, a big court decision a few years ago determined that people of the same sex are allowed to marry should they see fit. And that's another example of enforcement. The courts, however, are always the folks who are going to ultimately interpret the law. So all the laws that we have on the books, most of them are written with good intentions. Sooner or later, somebody's going to challenge the law. And the bottom line is, if you learn one thing from this class, if you learn one thing from human resource management, nothing is universal. It will always end up in court at some point along the way. So other ways that we do this stuff, other ways that we enforce. The government itself, whether it is the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, bless you, or the Department of Labor itself, the DOL, we make government policies that say this is the way you should treat people. The EEOC is the group that actually is responsible for enforcing this stuff. Now, if you guys will remember, the Civil Rights Act was 1964. People could not sue and get money damages for discrimination to any extent till right about 1991. So even though we established an EEOC, we had to have some more laws in place to be able to make this an enforceable kind of situation. The Department of Labor, working with the EEOC, makes sure that our laws themselves are not discriminatory and that we are enforcing realistic laws. Bless you. we've got a couple theories of discrimination. We're going to cover these, and that'll be it for today. They're very basic theories. First is disparate treatment. If an individual walks in for a job and you are treating that person differently for any reason that does not tie to the job. If somebody walks in, for example, and I say, I've got a practice of never hiring females, so I'm not going to hire this woman because she is a woman. I don't hire women in my shop. I would never say that, but if I were discriminating, I could potentially do that. Disparate treatment of one person is one thing. It's intentional. It establishes a pattern, and it means that you're judging people differently than other people based on a reason that has nothing to do with their qualifications for the job. If you keep on doing this, you can end up what we refer to as disparate impact. And it means a practice has resulted in a certain class of people being excluded from being hired. They're not always the same. One does not always lead to the other. And disparate impact can also be unintentional on the surface. Very quick, there was a very famous landmark case out of New York State. The company was called New York, Griggs versus New York Power, and Griggs was the name of an employee. Griggs was African American. He had a high school education and was denied being promoted into management. Management had come back with the statement that you needed a college degree to be able to get into a management level position. Upon audit, there was nothing in that position description that showed you needed a college degree to be a manager at that company. What the disparate impact was, the requirement for a bachelor's degree had a disproportionate effect on individuals who were African American in the late 60s in that period of the country, because a lot of those individuals were unable to go to college. So it was determined that the requirement that had been put in the position was done with the intent of keeping people out, keeping a glass ceiling in place, not letting people have an equal opportunity. So if a policy or decision you make has a disparate impact on a specific group of people in an unlawful way, that's disparate impact. Discriminating against an individual is individual discrimination. That's disparate treatment. Disparate impact is when your practice has an impact on an entire class of people. You guys get the distinction? Okay. Guys, that's what we're going to cover for today. So I will see you Friday. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.